This is the I Heart My Life show. Welcome back to the I Heart My Life show. So it's been a 9-month hiatus. This was an unplanned hiatus. And so today I want to dive into a 3-part series all about transitions, because truly the last 2 years for me have been full of highs and lows, transitions, reinventions, everything rebirth, everything birth. I have a new daughter. And so there's been a lot happening behind the scenes that I haven't felt ready to share with you until today. And the truth is, I don't know that I'm even ready now because I'm experiencing a lot of nervousness. This is a really important series for me, and I want it to be not only well received, but also understood. I think there's a lot of fear for me around what are people going to think? How am I going to be judged? But I'm choosing to put this out here anyway because I know it's going to help a lot of people. And that's truly why I started my company. I knew that because of my experiences, the quarter life crises, the confusion, all of the things that I went through in my 20s and my early 30s, I knew that that would help other people to move forward and continue to put one foot in front of the other, even if they too feel like things aren't working out. Everything's in the gutter, they're lost, etc. And now at 38, it's no different. So I've experienced a lot over the last few years. I have a lot of lessons, a lot of learnings, a lot of things I probably could have done a lot better. So we're going to dive into that over this series. So I've broken it up into 3 different parts. So the first is business transition. So I'm going to talk about how my business pretty much imploded and how I had to rebuild and what that actually looked like. I'm going to talk about the motherhood transition. So obviously having a baby, I have a daughter, and what that's looked like for me, especially as a business owner. And then I'm also going to talk about life transitions. So we've moved from Austin, Texas to Ohio, where I'm originally from. And that's been a huge not only, upheaval of our lives, but identity shift for me. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. And again, what I come back to is this is all designed to serve you so that if you're in a place of transition or you're in a place where things feel like they're not working or really aren't working, or you're on the brink of giving up, these episodes are for you. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience and also the learnings so that you can apply them to your own life. Okay. So as I mentioned, this episode in particular is creating a lot of nervousness for me. I have a lot of anxiety around how I'm going to be perceived and what you're going to think, and any sort of judgment, any sort of people attacking me, which I've definitely experienced over the last few years. And I have some notes in front of me because I know that there are some important points that I don't want to miss. Okay. So I'm just going to put that out there. I ask you to be kind. I ask you to watch this with an open heart. And if you don't, that's okay too. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. It's probably the hardest episode that I've ever recorded. All right. So now I've really built it up, right? Okay. So one of the things that I wanted to share right out of the gate is that over a span of 8 or 9 years, I had a 7-figure business every single year. So things were going really, really well. Especially when we moved to the US from the UK, things really started to ramp up. We had a lot of consistency. We moved the business from the UK to the US. So we were reestablishing all of that stuff, even the finances, the credit, etc. So fast forward to early 2022. James and I had launched this really amazing mastermind. It truly was like this bucket list mastermind that I'd always wanted to launch. It included a retreat in Bora Bora and other retreats and other incredible things. And so we filled this mastermind with 7 amazing women. And we were so excited about it. Everything was planned out. They were committed, period. So we had the first quarter of that mastermind, again, went really, really well. And during that same time, I was given the opportunity basically to take out a business loan. And if you remember, during that period, I was also actively pivoting the I Heart My Life brand. And I had realized, I wanted to take this in the direction of lifestyle, passive income, events, hire more team members, really go more mass scale with the brand versus just focusing on business coaching or, coaching coaches, which is what I had been doing in the past. So as you probably know, if you're a business owner, you're either going to get funding or you're going to completely bootstrap everything. So up until that point, I'd pretty much bootstrapped everything. I never had investors. Yes, I'd taken out loans here and there, but not to the extent that it made such a huge difference. So this year in particular, I thought I'm going to go all in. So we have everything covered in terms of financials with this mastermind. Contracts are signed. Actually, 2 contracts are signed. We had them sign not only a legal contract, but a contract that was essentially how you're going to show up as a client and how we're going to show up as a coach, and a reiteration of our policies. Okay. Now that's important for later on down in this conversation. And so I decided to go all in. So I took out a multi-6-figure business loan to reinvest in my company and do all the things I just described: hire team, pivot it in the direction I wanted it to go in, start to create some more passive income, all of those things. Now, the intention was also here because I knew that I wanted to have a baby as well. So that's another point that I want to make before we dive into the details of the story. And so I'm kind of laying the ground for you. So around that time, like I said, I took out these business loans. We had this really amazing mastermind set up. Everything was rocking and rolling. I was planning that I was going to be getting pregnant at some point that year. So all was good. So fast forward to around April of 2022, we had a client decide that she wanted to leave the mastermind. Now, this has happened before. If you've read my book, I've been through this before. Every single group program at some point will have somebody who wants to leave. At least that's been my experience and the experience of many of the colleagues that I've spoken to. So this is not, a big deal in itself. The thing that came up for this particular client, though, was that she wanted a refund of the deposit that she had paid. Now, I know not everyone listening is a business owner, but I am going to share some of the reasons for why I made certain decisions, and also, of course, my business learnings in this episode. So you can use that and apply it to whatever it resonates with in your life or relates to in your life. So I had asked for a deposit for this program, a pretty sizable deposit, because we had to pay for retreats in advance. Anyone who has run retreats or masterminds that include experiences, you know that you have to plan things and pay for things way before they actually happen. And it's really risky in the sense that sometimes you have to reserve things and put down money before you even have the program filled. Now, going back, I would not recommend that, but that's where we were at with this situation. And as you can imagine, a retreat like Bora Bora was a sizable investment. So when this person asked to not only be released from the contract, which by the way was not something we wanted to do and were willing to do, because in the contract it says if you leave the program, that's fine, but you're still responsible for your remaining payments. So she wanted to be let out with no more payments owed and have a full refund, even though she'd already attended a retreat, a few other things that we provided for her. She had had 4 months in the program, and we'd already paid for future experiences for her. Okay. So after a lot of back and forth, we decided we were going to release her from the contract, but she would not be getting a refund. And again, we did not have to do that. We had a contract in place that was very clear. I had people sign 2 different things in the beginning of this experience. And yet her reaction was one of, I want everything back and I don't want to pay anything else. Okay. Now, for those of you who have been through this experience, it probably brings up a lot of emotion for you, because oftentimes as a coach and people who are working with clients, you feel not only a sense of responsibility, but like a sense of being personally attacked. And I think that's one of the hardest things of having a brand like this and running a business like this, is because you do care so much and you're in the business of helping people, that of course you want to help people. And at the same time, you're running a business. And as I already mentioned, I had a lot of things happening behind the scenes that I had financial responsibility for. We had actually just purchased a house as well. So we moved in January 2022, and it was a $1.1 million house. We built it from the ground up. And so that was a huge investment for us. So I had the house, I had the business loans, I had the company I was running, I had the team members, I was planning to have a baby. And so during that time when she was asking for, money back and all of that, it was obviously really upsetting. And so it got to the point where she filed a claim with Stripe. I actually submitted all of my evidence and information, and we won the claim. And so she didn't get the refund that she requested. But that really set her off. And she decided she was going to attack us online and try and attack our character, and also go to the other members of the program to try and get them to leave. Okay. Now, there's a reason why I'm sharing all of this with you, not just for the lesson, but because I want you to really understand essentially what we've been experiencing over the last few years. And I don't want to share people's names, of course. That's not my intention. But I do want to highlight some of the major issues with the coaching space and with running a business like mine, basically, because I know there are other people out there who are experiencing the same things. So she went to the other members of the group, decided she was going to try and take us down, and set off on that path. Now, it's one thing when one person is doing that. I've had that happen before. I've had people say negative things about me online. I don't know anyone who is, kind of in the public space that hasn't. But this was to a whole nother level. And so I had to get a lawyer involved to try and get her to stop talking. She went to different previous team members of mine to try and dig up dirt, so to speak. They basically just forwarded her emails to us and said, there's nothing for us to say, number one. And number two, want you to know that this is happening. And it was really messy, and it was not fun. Now, to paint the picture even more, around that same time, I realized that I was newly pregnant. And so I was going through morning sickness, obviously a lot of emotion around, oh my goodness, this is really happening. And so there was a lot just in the works for me. There was a lot of stuff. During that same time as well, we had some of the clients in the mastermind start to waver, not just because of what this person was saying, but because they had made a sizable investment and in the previous months had realized that they wanted to pivot their business. They wanted to do something different. And so that meant that cash flow was changing. And so there was a lot of pressure on them. Now, this is where I raise my hand to say I could have done this so much better, in the sense that I could have vetted people in their financial situation more heavily. I could have used third-party funding, which basically means that you aren't responsible for payment plans. The client goes to essentially a private lender and they get the money for the program. And there's a lot less risk on your business. If anybody wants that information, you can email me, emily@emilywilliams.com, and I can share my information about the third-party funding. So I'll just leave it there. So there were things that I could have definitely done better in that moment. But when clients start to experience financial pressure, oftentimes they're looking at, okay, what is the thing that I can let go of the fastest? And unfortunately, within the coaching space, oftentimes coaching is still seen as this luxury, this thing that I don't necessarily need. And so when I need to cut something, it's going to be the first to go. All right. Now, that's not the case for everyone, but at this level, with the amount of investment it was, a lot of people, that was their reaction, right? Like, so my business isn't doing what I thought I wanted it to do, or I'm not doing what I want it to do. And so I'm going to pivot it. And now we're in this place where I'm not bringing in the money. And so I got to let something go. And I understand that. Okay. So we had a few people who basically had to pause and not be a part of the live component of the group for a few weeks. Now, because this was a small group, everyone else who was in the program and going through it live, they could feel that change. Okay. So it's 7 people. When it's 7 people, of course, if even 1 or 2 people leave, then you're going to feel that shift. And I, again, totally understand that. And as a business owner, it's really hard to know what to do, because you want to help people. Again, coming back to why we became coaches, you want to help people. You want to make sure that they're supported. But at the same time, you're running a company and you have to uphold your contracts and have boundaries. And a lot of people would say, well, just keep working with them until they get the results. And what a lot of the clients didn't know is that we were working with them behind the scenes. James and I were both having calls with them and reaching out to them on a regular basis to see how we could support them. Okay. Now, it's just so interesting to me that when I work with women who have similar businesses to me, they don't understand the policies that I'm trying to uphold, that they also are going to uphold with their clients. Okay. And so it's just a very tricky situation to be in, and one that I never want to be in again, to be honest with you. But that's kind of where we were at around June 2022. So fast forward to July 2022. Again, I'm about 8 to 10 weeks pregnant. I also ended up having COVID for 3 weeks during that month, probably because I was so run down from the stress of the situation. We had multiple members of the program decide to get on a call with each other and talk about the state of the program without us knowing about it. Now, if anyone has had this happen in their programs, you know that it doesn't feel good, and you'd much prefer clients come to you and talk about the issue versus going behind your back, right? And so that's what happened. And ultimately, multiple people decided that they too were going to cancel their contract, and they were going to not necessarily request a refund, but want to be let out of the contract. Okay. Now, again, I received this information via email, and I felt just so upset, to be honest, for lack of a better phrase, because these were clients I had worked with long term. These were people I was so excited about supporting. These were actually, a couple of them, people who were doing really well in the program. And so it was really shocking, to be honest, because no one had come to us to say we want to leave. It was just all of a sudden we get these emails. And again, if you read my book, the same thing happened in 2019, but apparently I didn't learn my lesson full enough, so it had to come back around. So again, I understand the pressure. I invested in a 6-figure program when I had literally just made 6 figures in my business. But it was one of those things that was the catalyst to massive growth for me. It actually helped me to create 7 figures. And we still had half the year left in the program for them to get results. Okay. So again, I know that you're only hearing one side of the story, and I also know how it feels to be a client in programs like the ones I'm describing. And so I do get it to a certain extent, but I don't think the level of respect was shown to myself and James as coaches as should have been, especially for people who had been with us on 2 retreats, had amazing results in the Bora Bora retreat and the Austin retreat. And it was just really painful to experience. Okay. So, fast forward, we get people wanting to leave the program, and I consult with my lawyers again and ask them what I should do. And their advice was, well, you're not going to chase them for the money because you don't want your reputation to be ruined. And again, I come back to the issues in the coaching space. I don't want to be the coach spokesperson here. And at the same time, I don't understand how we're supposed to run a business when contracts cannot be upheld. If we cannot have financial predictability and there's a risk of people leaving around every corner, when you're new, when you're building, when you're reinvesting as heavily as I was, how in the world can you even sustain that? How can you get the results that you want? How can you predict for anything? Right? It like wreaks havoc on your nervous system to such a great degree. And so during that time, where I was faced with like, there's nothing you can do, I literally just had to let people out of the program. And I had to face the reality that we had expected $250,000 to be coming in over the rest of the year, and it was gone. It wasn't going to come in. So as I mentioned, there's a line I don't want to cross when it comes to speaking about these clients, because every one of us has been in a situation where maybe we don't show up as our best selves, right? And they might have a whole nother, thing to say about this. And I would absolutely love, to reconcile with them at some point. And I still have this feeling of being disrespected because of how it was handled. And it wasn't everyone who didn't get on the phone with us, by the way. There were multiple people who had conversations with us. They actually wanted to stay in the program, but when it came down to it, it was a much smaller group in the end. And so it didn't really feel like a mastermind, which was completely understandable. So I'm just going to leave it at that in terms of those specifics. So what transpired next was us trying to figure out financially what we do from here. We have a baby on the way. We literally just bought our dream house. We bought all the furniture, all the things. We moved our whole life to Austin. And now we're here and we essentially have multi 6 figures in debt. Right? And we didn't expect any of that. I actually planned to have a baby at age 38 because I thought I would have everything set by that point. I thought I'd be in a secure place, and it ended up being the complete opposite, like the worst year we ever had. Okay. And I'll get to that in one of the other episodes. But I'm sharing this honestly because I know many people have been in that place where you try something, you go all in, you do it to the best of your ability. And yes, of course, I made mistakes along the way, but then it fails. Then it doesn't work. And then you're in this place where you're like, well, I'm worse off than I would have been had I never done it. And so what do I do? And so for us, it was like, I don't even know. I don't even know what to do. And so I'm going to share some of the steps that I took after, I don't know, getting myself back on track mentally because I was newly pregnant. I did have COVID. We had all this money that we lost. I was planning to reinvest in my brand and, change things up. And then literally all of that fell away. Now you could say, of course, I had almost 10 years of experience under my belt, which I did, 8 years. And I had connections. I had a reputation. I had things that I'd already built, which is great. It's much different. It's different than just starting from scratch. But in many ways, mentally, I felt like I was starting from scratch. And to be honest, the thing that was the hardest was the trauma of going through this again, but to an even greater degree because we were literally like being attacked online. And I don't care how upset you are about someone. You don't need to attack them online. You don't need to try and dig into their past to see if they've done anything that you can bring to the forefront. There have been plenty of programs I've been a part of that weren't aligned, but I would never try and drag somebody through the mud. So if you're someone who has done that, or you feel like maybe I will do that, if that ever happens to me, you've been tempted, just think about having an adult conversation instead. Just think about how it would feel if someone did that to you. Okay. And yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. All right. So I picked myself back up and really took a look at, okay, what is going to help here? What are we going to do? And I didn't know the answer. So I started talking to my colleagues. I have an amazing network. I have people who are so supportive. And I was honest and open about what happened with a few of them just to get emotional support and just to be like, have you been through this? What in the world do I do? And so if you're in a place where you're feeling like nothing's working, that would be one of the first things that I would recommend is take a look at, okay, who do I have in my corner who I can have a conversation with? Maybe they've been through what I'm going through. They can give me some steps to take, or at least provide a shoulder to lean on, to cry on. Okay. Now, I'm of the mindset that everything happens for us. And so as quick as I possibly could, I tried to get in that mindset as well and ask myself, what are the lessons that I can take from this? And what are the positives? All right. And so the quicker you can also get to that place, I like to call it your bounce back ability, the quicker you're going to be able to see the positives and you're going to see the path ahead and what it is that you want to do next. And so for me, having those conversations actually opened up an opportunity to collaborate with two of my colleagues on a new program. I had another opportunity to move forward with another type of business that I wanted to explore. And so there were just a few things that sort of came out of the woodwork that I could latch onto, take a look at, and see if those would fit with where I was going in the direction I was headed. Now, I think the thing I wanted to mention here is that oftentimes during that period of struggle, we go to survival mode and we actually make decisions from a place of fear instead of what we know we really want. And that temptation there's such a strong pull there because of course we want to survive. Of course we want to, for example, make the money to provide for our family, to pay our bills. But I'd love for you to ask yourself, if you find yourself at that crossroads, if I was in my most abundant state, if things were working amazingly, what decision would I make here? Would I be taking this path? Would I be working with these clients? Would I be launching this program? Or is this essentially a Band-Aid when I'm bleeding, which again is understandable, and it's a temporary fix that might throw me off course or might, soften the blow for a second until I move on to the next thing. And there's nothing wrong with that temporary fix if you know it's going to be temporary and then you're going to move on to the next thing. The issue I see with a lot of people is that they don't even explore what their legacy work is and what the thing is that they actually want when they're in the midst of the challenge. Okay. And so I just want you to be aware of, what is the thing that you desire, even when it feels like it's so far, or you screwed up so big, or you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Continue to go back to what that legacy work is, or what your true desire actually is. And that's what I had to do for myself, is really continue to remember that I have these big desires, I have these big goals, and it's still possible for me to achieve them. There's a lot to learn here, and I'm not going to bypass that. And of course, I want to get in forward motion sooner rather than later. So those are a few steps that I took right then and there, in the beginning, after I processed everything and after I stopped feeling sick for my first trimester and started to get a bit more clarity around why this was actually happening. And I think, there were some red flags with people in the beginning that I should have definitely paid attention to. There were, I'll just leave it at that for now. And I think that when we look back, of course, they say hindsight is 2020. So I gave myself permission to look at that as well, because I don't want to go through this again. I don't want to make the same mistake. And I do think that the coaching industry has changed, and there are a lot of people out there who are skeptical, and there are a lot of people out there who don't want to spend a lot of money like they used to, because they have in the past and it hasn't worked. And so I do get that, and I understand where they're coming from. And I think there's a way to do it to be respectful of people, even if you're not face to face with them. Be the respectful person and end something in a way that you'd want somebody else to end it with you. Okay. So long story short, we basically had to start over. And I'm going to share more in the next few episodes about what that looked like with the birth of our daughter, Charlotte, as well as moving our life from Austin all the way to Ohio. Because those are a little bit of a different sort of story. But I hope that this serves you in a way that you don't feel alone if you've been through a challenge, regardless of what that is. And also that you don't have to share everything right away, because I think that's a big point that I want to make here. Maybe you're going through a health crisis or a relationship struggle, and you're feeling ashamed for it, or you're still unpacking what it means, or you're still, as my friend Trisha Brooks says, you still have that open wound. It hasn't yet become a scar. You don't have to share until you're ready to share. And for me, I never want to feel like I'm hiding. I never want to feel like I'm not being transparent. I also want to make sure that people understand that I'm not superhuman. I've been through a lot of crap. I've been through a lot of struggle. And one of the reasons I'm here today recording this in this beautiful house that we've been able to find in Ohio, and all the things, is because of my mindset and the work that I've done to tap into what it is that I actually want and make that non-negotiable. Now, does that mean that everything happens in the exact time frame that I think it will? Well, not necessarily. But when you strengthen your mindset and you're clear on your vision and clear on what you're meant for, then you truly can make it through anything. Now, I'm still experiencing some trauma from that experience. I'm still working with coaches to move through that, because it was incredibly painful. And in many ways, I didn't process it fully because I was pregnant and there was a lot I kind of had to put to the side. But yeah, you are capable of anything. I mean, I was served papers, being sued by American Express, holding my 6-week daughter in my arms. Now, if that isn't painful, I don't know what is, especially after having a 7-figure business for so many years. And of course, being known for money mindset. And obviously I have a lot to learn in terms of finances, but I think when it comes to money mindset, that's still one of my major strengths, because I continued to move forward even though our situation was what it was. And we've been able to pay off almost everything at this point, which is incredible. And so really just think about, where can you strengthen your mindset and keep going and tap into your greatest desires, because life can be challenging, and at the same time, you can strengthen yourself and your mindset to be able to get through anything. So thank you for being here. Thank you for witnessing this and to holding a safe space for me, and for the support. And if anyone has been through something similar, my heart goes out to you, but you are strong. And like I said, there's always a lesson. There's always something to be learned. And we can always find a positive in every situation. So looking forward to sharing the next few episodes with you and being back on the I Heart My Life show. Talk to you soon. One more thing before you go. I've created a dream life guide to support you if you're in a transition or just trying to get clear on what it is that you actually want. You have a feeling that you're meant for more, there's something else available for you. This guide will support you in getting that clarity and understanding any of the mindset blocks that may threaten to hold you back, and then get into action to the results that you are craving. So go to emilywilliams.com/guide to get this free guide today, plus a bonus walkthrough where I go through all of my framework and the steps that I take to support women just like you in creating their dream life. So go to emilywilliams.com/guide.